Hello everyone, welcome to today's video in which we are going to discuss the answers of revision on Unit 10. Let's begin with the exercise of the vocabulary. Sentence number 1, pay attention. Africa and Europe are two of the world's largest continents. Of course, Africa and Europe are not oceans or countries or planets, they are continents. Sentence number 2, if you eat that fish, you might be very ill. It's poisonous, of course, is the correct answer. Sentence number 3, the farmer put all the old grass in a field where he knew it would. Look at all these answers and you will find that rot is the word that will complete the meaning. Sentence number 4, Layla works very hard at school because she is determined to go to a good university. Determined to. A person who is determined is a person who insists to do something. The island is very space. It takes 2 days to get there by boat. Remote here is the correct answer, and remote means very far. When the boat arrived at the island, the tourists went ashore, of course, went ashore to visit the ancient temple. It means they arrived and they went to the shore. And instead of saying to the shore, we say went ashore. And pay attention, sometimes we have the word ashore written separately. A is separate from shore. This is not the correct answer. I need it to be written like this, ashore. And by the way, ashore is an adverb. Ahab is the captain of the Beakwood, which was a whaling ship. Whaling ship is a kind of ships that was used for hunting whales. Siwa is in a remote part of the country. Siwa is in a remote part of the country, about 750 kilometers west of Cairo. All his dreams and space came true. Of course, ambitions. Someone I know recommends this shop. Recommends means advises me to do something. Someone I know recommends this shop as a good place to buy clothes. Sentence number 11. I try to avoid. Avoid is followed by a verb with ing. I try to avoid going shopping on Saturdays. He was getting bored. Remember to say get bored with. Get bored with. Melville is the name of a writer. Melville was born into a good New York family in 1819. Was born into. And remember, when you say was born into, this is followed by a description of his family. Was born into a happy family, a healthy family, a wealthy family, something like this. So, was born into is followed by a description of the family. She reads too much, she gets headaches. And the correct answer is whenever. Whenever she reads, it means every time she reads, every time she gets headaches. Whenever. I wouldn't recommend. Recommend is also followed by verb with ing. I wouldn't recommend staying. But remember or notice this and write it in your copy box now. Recommend is followed by verb with ing. But if recommend is followed by an object, it is followed by 2 plus infinitive. Like when I say, I recommend you, who can complete? I recommend you to stay. I recommend you to stay. It's different from when I say, I recommend staying. So pay attention to both situations. When he had left school, he worked. We don't say in farms, by the way, we say on farms. So before the word farm, we use the preposition on. Most of the old part of the city was destroyed by bombs during the war. Destroyed. The ship had a very big crew. People who work on a ship are called crew. Crew is also used when we talk about people who work on a plane. The cave, sentence number 19, the cave painting was painted by primitive people. Primitive people thousands of years ago. Primitive. In the storm, the boat sank and 2 people drowned. Drowned. And here I have a question. What is the difference between drown and sink? Do you know the answer? Sentence number 21. Lions always hunt for food. Hunt for food. I tried to stop him, but he had already left. Try is followed, sometimes is followed by 2 plus infinitive, and sometimes it's followed by it's followed by ing. And there is a difference. Pay attention. When you say I tried to stop him, it means I know the target, I know what I want, and I work hard to achieve this. Okay? But when you say try plus ing, it means you do nothing hard and you don't know the result. I tried to stop him. He was a young sailor on his first sea voyage. A young sailor. A sailor because it's a voyage. When will their new album come out? And come out for a book, for a film, for a song, something like be published. People need to be determined to achieve their goals in life. Some students told me that the answer can be also serious, but this is not correct, because you don't need to be serious to achieve your goal. You can achieve your goal while you are having fun. Serious means a person who is not joking. A person who is not joking. So determined is the correct answer for number 25. Number 26. Is a weapon like a spear used for hunting whales. This is called harpoon. Harpoon. We spent 2 months aboard the ship. Aboard the ship, it means on the ship. It's different from the word abroad, which means outside the country. So don't get confused. Turn left at the traffic lights and you will see the hospital straight ahead. Ahead, which is one word, not a and head. And ahead means in front of you. Whale meat is still popular in some countries like Japan. Some people believe that whales play a vital role. Don't get confused. Role is different from rule. The sailors left their ship and went ashore. Went ashore. We said this expression before. The elephant attacked the hunters. Attacked the hunters. Don't get confused between attacked and attached. They spaced the line for 3 days, and the correct answer is hunted. And I want you to know the true and the right meaning of the word hunt. Hunt is not only the second or the minute or the moment in which I kill the animal. All the time while I'm chasing, while I'm following this animal, this is also called hunting. So when I say they hunted the lion for 3 days, it means they chased it, they followed it for 3 days. So all this time, the time in which I try to catch the animal, is also called hunt. 3 armed men. And armed men means people who carried, yes, weapons. His father, goods from France, imported. And remember, import from. Import from. If we want to use export, we are going to say export to. Export to. As soon as one of the men saw the whale, Ahab gave him the coin. And of course, you read the story of Moby Dick once before. Ahab gave him the coin. That's the end of the exercise related to the vocabulary. Now let's move to the exercise related to the grammar. Sentence number 1. In this unit, we were speaking about the past perfect and the past perfect continuous. And before starting to answer, I want to tell you the difference. Both of them, the past perfect and the past perfect continuous, express the older action, the action that happened first. But when we speak the past perfect continuous, we are focusing on the duration of the action. When you use the past perfect continuous, it means that you want to say that the older action took a long time. The older action lasted for a long time. The river was very full because it had been raining for a week. Can you see? For a week. Here I am focusing on the period of time that the older action took. So I need to use had been raining. Before my father worked for the bank, he had worked as a manager at the supermarket. This is the older action, and the older action needs to be past perfect. The fire grew quickly because it hadn't rained for many months. Hadn't rained. The writer hadn't finished his book at the sea. Hadn't finished his book at the sea before he died. Before, we need to use the past perfect, and the correct answer, hadn't finished. Where had you been living before you moved to Aswan? Had you been living? I hard all year. Of course, the correct answer, had been working. I had been working hard all year. My clothes were very dirty because I had been repairing the car all morning. And here we have an expression like all morning. It indicates that we are focusing on the period of time. So don't use had repaired, use had been repairing, because we are expressing the duration of the time that the older action took. Sama to 5 countries by the age of 23. And the correct answer, of course, had traveled. Some students will say, Mister, you told us once before that we use the past perfect or the past perfect continuous when we have 2 actions. But here we have 1 action. And your answer is not correct, because here we have 2 actions. One of them is that traveling, and the other is reaching the age of 23. So by here means before. When I say Sama had traveled to 5 countries before she reached the age of 23, that's the meaning of the sentence. Before I traveled to France, I had been studying French for 10 years. Don't use had studied, because here we have for 10 years, and this indicates that we are talking about the duration of the time of the older action. Sentence number 10. By the time the holiday was over, I had read the whole book. I had read the whole book. This is an action that I have finished. Sarah and Hadil had been talking for more than an hour when their friend Hannah arrived. I 5 chocolate bars before I started to feel sick. Here we have something different. If the older action is repeated for more than 1 time, if the older action is repeated for more than 1 time, you can use the past perfect and not the past perfect continuous. So in this sentence, we can't say I had been eating 5 chocolate bars. This is wrong. The correct answer will be had eaten, not had been eating. Iman had been away for more than from home for 5 months, so she decided to return home. Had been. Sentence number 14. Giovanni seemed angry this morning. Perhaps he had received some bad news. This is the older action, and I need to put it in the past perfect. And here I don't have a duration of the time, so I can't say had been receiving. And of course, don't think of had been received, because this is passive, and this sentence is not passive. Number 15. When Moby Dick came out in 1851, Herman had been writing for 5 years. Had been writing. Before I met you, I had been running for 2 hours. Had been running. 17. By the time we got home, we had been walking for hours. Had been walking. He, for the bus for half an hour before it came. Had been waiting is the correct answer. Ahmed had been driving for 2 hours when he had the accident. Had been driving. After he had left school, he worked in ordinary jobs. Don't say had been leaving, because this is a short action, not a long action, that didn't took a long time, and we don't have any indication that we are focusing on the duration of the time. Melville hadn't finished his final novel about life at sea at the time of his death. It means when he died, he hadn't finished. He had already written 2 books. Why don't we say been writing? Because he mentioned the number of times. He said 2 books. If you have the number of times, don't use the past perfect continuous. Use the past perfect. By the age of 20, Herman was bored with the jobs he had been doing. Had been doing. This is the older action. We loved reading about life Melville had lived. There were floods because it had been raining for 3 days. Had been raining. The bus had broken down. Had broken down. That's why Layla was late for school. Ali had been looking for a job. Had been looking for a job for 6 months when he found one. I found the money which I had lost yesterday. Finding the money is newer than losing it, so the older action needs to be past perfect. When Ali went to university, he had been studying English for 10 years. When Ali went to university, he had been studying English for 10 years. I was tired yesterday morning because I had been reading until late the night before. Reading is older than feeling tired. So had been reading, this is the older action. By the time I went to sleep, I had read 100 pages. 100 pages, this is the number of times. So when we mention the number of times, we use the past perfect and not the past perfect continuous. We arrived late, and by the time we sat down, the film had started. This is the older action, and the older action needs to be past perfect. And because it is an action that didn't last for a long time, we can't use the past perfect continuous. That was the end of today's video. That was the end of exercise on Unit 10. I want all of you to pay attention to every sentence. Do your best during the rest of the time. See you soon. Goodbye.